For this topic, I strongly feel like for people on safety, I feel like they should turn off their airdrop for any time when you're around, especially a public place. Um, you don't have control of some students or teachers what they're sending over airdrop. So you have to make sure you turn your off so you won't have to be acknowledge other things, because you have that on your phone and somebody finds something like sexual, anything that's not good, you can go to jail for that, even just being somebody airdropping something to you. So you have to be safe for your own safety. Turn off your airdrop, so you have to worry about that.
As a girl, I would say that a lot of girls do use airdrop for of course, if you're sharing your pictures with your friends. But I feel as though that the people who airdrop inappropriate content should be punished. And I feel as though like the person that's receiving it should not be punished, because a lot of times we have the victim and the person who does it. So I just feel like if a person does receive an airdrop, they should not be punished if they accidentally open it. But I feel like the person who does send it should be punished.
Out of everything, you shouldn't be airdropping things you shouldn't be during school. If you have some stuff you want to airdrop to your friends or some other things, do it after school. Do it somewhere where it's not in public, or just be discreet about it. Don't airdrop stuff that you're not supposed to in the first place.
My position on airdropping is, like many of you have already stated, you have to be very cautious of the content within those airdrops, because you do run the risk of receiving criminal penalties, and they can range from a Class C misdemeanor at the lowest to a felony. And you also have to keep in mind, it's also the content. It depends on the person's age. It depends on the type of imagery that's within that content. And you also have to be mindful that you run the risk of having several charges placed against you that range from inappropriate visual recording, invasive visual recording, online harassment, to even child pornography. And sometimes you can also run the risk of receiving child endangerment charges, because if you have somebody who's 14 and they send an inappropriate imagery to a 17-year-old, and that 17-year-old exposes them, well, that's considered a child. And at 17, you can still run the risk of receiving criminal penalties, but on the adult statute. So I know some people are like, well, I thought I was 18 when I was grown. No, at 17, you run the risk of going to jail. So always be cautious about what you put out there. And if you don't want your mama to see it, don't put it out there. Seriously. Because I wouldn't put anything out there that my mom couldn't see. So that's the mentality that everybody should have, because airdropping, it is new, but it's also becoming something that's very large. And on the large scheme of things, you have to understand, colleges, that's affected. If they see you guys, even holding liquor bottles, you could lose a scholarship. If they see you partying loosely, having marijuana, you just have to always be conscious of the content that you're putting out there, because it necessarily doesn't have to be sexually based. Anything that you put out there and somebody else can receive it, well, if they're trying to blackmail you, that's also a charge. You just have to be very conscious about what and how you're doing things, because what is perceived to you as just something careless, to somebody else, if they get offended by it and they come to the police, hey, you run the risk of receiving charges. So you just have to be very mindful about what you're putting out there, how you're putting it out there, and what you want that perception to be perceived as, because in law enforcement world, that plays a major factor into how we decide what type of charge, what grade, was the intent there? Did you knowingly do it? Was it intentional? Or was it done recklessly? Because a lot of the statute reads intentionally, knowingly, and reckless. So you also have to educate yourself and knowing what you're getting into.
So, dealing with this topic, what I definitely would say is the golden rule. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. Because, it's basically really cookie cut. You wouldn't want somebody talking to you in a crazy tone, like you have two heads and a tail. You wouldn't like that. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So when you're dealing with somebody, you need to be conscious, and you also need to be calm, cool, and collected. You understand? We're in an environment where anything can happen, anything can go wrong. But you can't control what somebody says, but you can control how you respond. So be mindful, and because you never know what somebody is going through in our school or anywhere for that matter. Be mindful. One thing can trigger somebody. Dealing with everything that we have going on in this society, in this day and time, with the Florida shooting, you never know what somebody is going through. So as far as that, all I can say is treat others the way you would like to be treated, and have a calm, respectful tone, because everybody wants to be respected.
Going off of what Sapphire was saying about treating others how you want to be treated, there is not, I feel personally, there's not a lot of respect going around just among students. Maybe it's an age thing, but I feel like you should respect anybody the same way. Like you said, treat others as you want to be treated.
Exactly.
So that means even a senior to a freshman, you should give them the same respect as you would give another senior, because they're human, they're a person too, and they deserve that respect. You got to give it to get it, basically. And what else was I gonna say? You do have to be more open-minded and receptive of others, empathetic towards others, I should say, because like she said, you don't know what others are going through, and there's more of a every man for himself mentality, and it shouldn't be like that. Students should support other students, whether it's sports, activities, or just you see somebody in need, they need help, and you should be there to lend that helping hand.
So I do agree that having social skills is very imperative, especially when you're trying to interact with each other, because like many of you have said, how you treat somebody and the tone in which you talk to somebody, it does affect how that interaction goes. So I think that in order for us to get better in how we deal with each other, we also have to learn how to talk to each other, because it's one thing to say, well, girl, you getting on my nerves, but it's another thing to say, look, I'm really not liking how you handle me. We could do this a different way and it'd be effective. So I agree with Sapphire. It's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And if you haven't developed those social skills to be able to talk to somebody, that's why as peers and everybody on this stage, you have to start conditioning your friends, because that's where it starts. It starts with how you talk to each other.
What I feel is that people should be like more mindful about what they say. Like, it could be friends, it could be like, people that don't know each other. Like, a couple of weeks ago I had like two girls who were like close friends or whatever, and like they were discussing about something. And just because of one wrong thing that this girl said, they just were going at it. And these are girls like, they've been friends for like years. And it went to a point that the teacher had to separate them up, like, saying that, one stands in one desk and the other goes to another. And like, just students have to be mindful that they have to know, like, there's a time and a place for everything. Like, sometimes you can't, say certain things to somebody, because, you could say your friend for so many years, but sometimes you could touch them in a spot where you never know that they had in them. So, it's just being mindful and careful with your friends and peers.
I would say as an adult on the campus and observing the peer-to-peer relationships, I've noticed that there is not a strong relationship building piece among the student body. You all are quick to say your friends, sisters, brothers, cousins, but you haven't established what that relationship looks like. You don't have expectations of what that relationship should look like. So as soon as someone deems to have crossed the line, your reaction to that plays a part in it. So, and it does come back to what everyone's saying: respect one another, respect those boundaries, set boundaries, establish those boundaries, so that way others know when to take you serious, when you're playing, what's too far, and so that way they know it is too far, and you all can have a grip on it, you can have an active grip on it, instead of it spilling over into something else.
So as a past disruptive student, I know a few things about being punished or being put in a certain category. A lot of times, the kids that act out, they have something going on at home. So when you have your adult figures that come in and step in and say, hey, well, what's going on? Like, what's really going on? I was an AP honor roll student, but I constantly got into fights, constantly. So it's just a matter of like, if you're gonna punish someone, make sure you know the reason behind of what they've done. Because a lot of times they've done something for a reason, or they're acting out for a reason. So this, oh, okay, well you're just another person that's a bad apple. A lot of times that bad apple can become a good apple. You just have to learn how to handle a student who's dealing with something, because you never know. You never know if that could be the next president or if that could be the next police officer if they get disciplined.
That brings me back, as what Patrice was saying, you never know what's going on with the person at home. So giving them ISS, sending them home, suspending them, what's that going to help them? How is that helping them improve themselves? What can we or anybody do to help these students mature, or just throughout any problems they're having? You got to reach out to them. It's not just about ISS suspension. You give them more work. You have to make up hours. You need to be willing to reach out to someone, make sure they're doing okay. It's not just help them out. If you don't help them out, then there's no way of fixing the situation that's occurred.
So fortunately, we all now have my position, the GCF here. If you don't know who I am Ms. Fogarty again. I'm an F116. So my position here is to be that person that you come speak to be that person you say, I'm having issues. You may not open up 100%, but I want to build that relationship with you to say, hey, it's something wrong. And like Patrice said, sometimes there are things going on outside of the school, at home, that we here do not have any control over. But our job is to say, I know this is something wrong. You may have did something wrong, and there may have to be a disciplinary action that follows that. However, it's not, oh, you're just a bad apple. It's, you have a consequence because of your action. However, let's work together to make sure that we fix it, and come to me. So that way, whatever it is, whether you're hungry, whether you need somewhere to sleep, whether you just need that time to express yourself, then that's what the door is open for.
I feel personally, and I've been saying this, that a lot of the kids don't take it seriously, and that's just the bottom line. They take it as a joke, lockdowns and things like that, and the serious issues like the shootings going on, they don't really take it serious. And I think it's because a lot of the kids have that mentality that nothing's gonna happen to them. Like, oh, that won't happen to me, you know. But anything can happen. So it's always better to be prepared than to just act as if it can't happen to you. And as far as safety goes, I feel like some of the methods are ineffective, personally, because you have, like, if you could put people on lockdown, you'll still have kids out in the hallways or do things like that. And it's not so much as, like, staff fault, it's more the kids, because they don't take it seriously, and it's like, oh, well, I still have to go out in the hallways and do this and that. So I guess it's not taken seriously. That's one of the biggest problems.
I totally agree with her, because, like, in my perspective, I don't see any benefit from doing lockdowns over and over after, like, a couple of fights, because it's not going to fix anything. Because I feel most of the conflict will start brewing outside of school, and because people want to put up a show or something, or show, like, oh, I'm a big man, you know, don't mess with me. They'll fight in school, so, like, it'll kind of build rep in a way or something like that. And I feel like doing lockdowns only just stops it to do it at school that day, but it doesn't mean it's going to stop it in the long run, because the conflict can still go outside of school. And that's why I also feel lockdown won't help, because you're just punishing everybody else instead of the specific people actually causing the trouble for the rest of the school.
So safety-wise, what I've noticed is that when we have lockdowns for certain situations, some kids, they don't care as much for their safety because they haven't been in enough situations where their safety is threatened or it's not that serious to them. And some teachers, they'll try really hard to care for your safety, and then there's some that they deal with too many bad students to where they don't care.
I would like to say all of you are correct. Some of us are not taking it seriously. All drills that we do, all drills that we have are to prepare all of us, not just the students but the staff, to in the event of an emergency, to do what we need to do to make sure we are all safe. So we have instances where students decide they want to prop the door open. As an adult, having to call a parent and say your child was harmed because their friend propped the door open. That's a conversation that myself I don't want to have. So if you're the ones propping doors open, or if you're the ones inviting uninvited guests to our campus, just know someone's parent has to be notified. And would you want that to be your parent to be called?
You actually brought out one of the points I wanted to talk about. So I personally have noticed that as I'm walking, just exiting the school, bell just rang, I have to go through and walk in that student parking lot. That in itself should be just fine, you're just walking. But I noticed that I have to pay more and more attention lately because people are acting crazy in the parking lot. Whether it's just to impress, just making your car sound really loud or seeing how fast you can turn around the corner. Just yesterday, actually, me and two other friends were just walking, and we were almost out of the parking lot. I see from the corner of my eye a car, thinking, okay, it's fine. It's going faster and faster. It's reversing quicker and quicker and quicker, and it stops. And I'm just this close to the car, I shouldn't have to fear getting hit by a car just walking out of school. And I'm looking around and it's just where are all the administrators? And I keep looking and I see the closest ones to me at the moment would have been on the field. But what good would that have done? It's I can't call out all the way over there. So I think maybe placement of administrators could be a useful thing to keep into account.
Real quick, it's not just our administrative team, it's the entire faculty and staff. Each teacher is required to walk their child or their group of students downstairs, or if they're on the first floor, out the door. So your teachers, whoever class you came out of, should have made sure that you were all the way in the parking lot and had eyes on you. So that way in an event like that, you could have said teacher.
Your most important years, like Officer Bennett said, that it creates that foundation. How well you do your freshman year, that's gonna follow you throughout the rest. So I know a lot of people who joked around their freshman year, didn't take their classes serious, they failed it. Now all of a sudden here we are, junior year, they're realizing, oh shoot, it's real. Yeah, and now they have to work extra hard to get into the college, meeting the requirements that they need. All because they didn't take their freshman year seriously. And like Patrice said, it gets harder. So freshman year, that's about as easy as it gets. And it just gets harder and harder every year.
Man, I don't even know where to begin. When I was in 8th grade or 9th grade, I wish I would have had somebody tell me, take your grade serious. And now that I think about it, you seriously have to take a grade serious. If you're an athlete, especially if you're an athlete, that's the first thing they college look at, your GPA and who you are as a person. They see your GPA, they're gonna say, no, on to the next one. That's how it works. That's how it's a business. So you starting off in freshman year, do everything on top, do everything how you play a video game or something. You want to be the best scorer or something. Do the same thing if you're doing test scores or doing your work. Establish, like she was saying, establishing your freshman year, like just do what you gotta do, because that's what I'm the predicament my end, because I didn't take school serious. Now I have to choose to go to a junior college to play football. I have people coming to me like Texas State, U of A, coming to me because I had the athletic ability, but when they see my grades, I was like, no, we can't do that. So just set your grades, bro.